Here's my reaction of a reaction to my reaction of a video.
3 reasons, among many, that I am an atheist.
Didn't know Spider-Man was Christian, but let's run it.
Well, this one is. Shout out to the Spider-Verse movies. Also, Peter has prayed in the comics before. And just saying, nobody said anything. No one batted an eye when Paviter came out as religious in the Spider-Verse films. But when I preach Jesus...
Have you ever noticed that most people are the religion of their parents? You'd think that if there was one super obvious religion, then everyone would have converted to that by now.
Okay, well, my parents are Mormon, and I'm not. I'm a Christian, so that's not a good enough reason to write off God's existence.
Yeah, so what she was saying is that everyone should have converted to the religion if it was actually that obvious. So just stating that you and some other people converted is not sufficient enough. Also, no one said it writes off God's existence. It's just something to think about.
Well, Christianity is the largest religion in the world. And either way, it's just a bad argument. Like, you're putting too much faith in people. We're talking about a world where people can't even define how many genders there are.
If there is a God, then he must be a really horrible person.
You serious?
It's not uncommon to hear believers say, "Oh, God saved my baby, what a miracle," even though that same God is completely ignoring all of the babies dying in extreme poverty across the world.
It's ironic that the same people that say God lets babies die are the same people that support abortion.
So what you just did there was completely deflect the claim, and it did not address it at all, and instead attack the other person and say, oh, you don't care about babies. That's not the point. Whether she cares about babies or not is irrelevant. The point is, an all-loving God shouldn't let babies die.
So because he doesn't intervene every single time something bad happens, it's his fault? If I punch somebody in the face and God doesn't protect them with the force field, is it now God's fault for me punching that person in the face, or is it my fault? And I actually did address her point in the follow-up response.
It seems to me like God favors those who already live in affluent societies who have access to great medical care.
Or maybe, this is just a thought, societies with better medical care have lower infant mortality rates, and it has nothing to do with God.
Yup, that's what she was trying to say.
No, her point was that if God is real, then that means anytime something bad happens, including babies dying, that's his fault for not intervening. But my point is that God gave us a free will and allows the natural consequences of our actions. People love to blame God for all the evil things that happen in this life, but he literally came down as a man, and we tortured and crucified him. So why are we blame shifting? Why are we blaming God when we're the ones doing the evil?
Okay, so Spidey, regardless of what you think Jesus did, he is still responsible for all of the death, sickness, and disease because he is the one who was allowing it to happen and causing it to happen, because no human causes natural disasters. God has to choose to put this hurricane here, to put this disease here. So just saying, oh, he tried and he got tortured, great. He's still currently responsible for doing evil.
So basically, when God doesn't intervene when something happens, it's his fault. But if he does intervene, it's just a coincidence. There's a natural explanation. Atheists really love moving the goalpost. Like I said, if I punch somebody in the face, is it my fault? Or is it God's fault for allowing me to punch them? Or is it my mom's fault for giving birth to me? We can point fingers and shift blame all we want, but in that situation, it is my fault and my fault alone. God gave us a free will. Okay, if I rewatched a sports game knowing who would win in the end, does that mean the players don't have free will? Just because God knows what's going to happen doesn't mean he's the one causing it.
Also just no evidence that God exists. And sure, I've heard tons of personal anecdotes about miracles and seeing things that couldn't be explained, but to me, every time I hear a story like that, there's always a more logical explanation for the phenomenon.
Logic according to you, who wasn't there. Like, just because you haven't experienced miracles or anything supernatural doesn't mean other people haven't. Sorry, next time I experience a miracle, I'll make sure I consult with you first to see if it's logical.
Yeah, so the reason why miracle claims are only valid if there's no other natural explanation is because if we could explain it naturally, it's probably not a miracle.
You could always say something has a natural explanation, but that doesn't mean it's a reasonable explanation. Things that happen supernaturally affect the natural. Sometimes it takes a much bigger leap of faith to explain something through a purely naturalistic lens, instead of explaining it through the presupposition that God exists and miracles happen. How many times is it a natural coincidence before it finally becomes supernatural? Like if God came down from the skies, preached to an entire city, and then healed everybody in that city, you would still have people saying that it was mass hysteria and placebo effect.
I say the human body is evidence that God exists, but it's riddled with design issues. We get addicted easily, our eyes are too weak, we need surgery constantly, and before modern medicine, women died in childbirth all the time.
Your example of the human body having design issues is literally explained in Genesis. Sin entered the world, and therefore death followed, corruption followed, disease followed, our lifespan started shortening.
So the Bible mentions that death came into the world because of sin, but it never mentions anything about our eyes getting worse or our backs not being able to support our body or anything about vestigial organs. What it says is that we will die and childbirth pains. It doesn't say anything about deteriorating bodies. And I would say the better explanation for this is evolution.
But we can see the effects of that through genealogies and people's lifespans being shortened. So the idea that we have been degenerating is biblical. And if evolution is the better explanation, then why are we deteriorating? Why are we devolving? Doesn't that kind of contradict the entire premise of evolution? Get it? The Mormon religion is a little whack. Joseph Smith, he was kind of a silly goose. But atheism isn't more true than Mormonism is.
I don't know. Atheism relies on facts, and Mormonism doesn't really.
Facts? I think you mean presuppositions. Like, we're both looking at the same exact evidence. The only difference is our presuppositions. Yours is that God isn't real, so you have to compensate with a surplus of time to explain how humanity evolved. And that still doesn't answer the question of how the universe came into being and how life came from non-life. Okay, we both have faith in our presuppositions. The evidence only gets us so far where then we have to exercise faith. And like I said, we're looking at the same evidence. However, my faith is rooted in Christ, who is the most verifiable human being in history, who has over 25,000 manuscripts documenting his existence, who claims to be God incarnated as a man, who still changes people's lives today. Okay, what is your faith rooted in? I'm just saying, dude, I don't have enough blind faith to be an atheist. With that being said, with great knowledge comes great accountability. Spider-Man can't save you, but Jesus can.